Listen to that. The sound of flowing water, nature's heartbeat. It's peaceful, it's grounding, it's.
Oh, hey, David. I got a joke that I want to tell you.
Tyler, I'm trying to achieve inner stillness here. What is it?
Okay, well, that's perfect timing then. All right, here it goes. What's Bruce Lee's favorite drink?
I'm afraid to ask.
What's Hey everyone, welcome to Ancient Wisdom Modern Voices, the podcast where timeless knowledge meets contemporary insight. Each episode, we bridge the gap between the past and present, bringing ancient insights to examine today's most pressing issues. Join us on a journey as we explore how the old can illuminate the new. Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Ancient Wisdom Modern Voices podcast. We're your host. I'm Tyler.
And this is Nina.
And we hope y'all enjoyed that opening skit because it flows nicely into today's topic, water. You know, water is a very interesting thing because it's something that's so soft and so simple, and yet it holds tremendous power to shape worlds, cultures, and even our inner lives. Hey, do us a quick favor and give this podcast a 5-star review and subscribe here on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music. Your support means the world to us. But before we dive into today's topic, we've got a very special announcement that we want to share with everyone here today. We have a new voice that's joining the podcast, and we're very thrilled to announce and welcome our newest co-host, David. Hey, David, what's good, man? Welcome to the family. Share with us and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what brings you here today.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm super excited to join you. Just to give a little bit of background about me, I'm currently working in the tech industry, basically helping medium enterprises transform in this era of AI. But as something that I have been really passionate about is personal transformation and helping others transform in a positive way. So that's why I'm super stoked to be part of this podcast and having a positive impact in others. And just sharing our own stories, sharing our own reflections, and helping others also reflect. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome, David. We're so excited to have you. And what a perfect episode to start with because water is loaded with wisdom. And the more that I actually think about it, the more I realize that water isn't just something that we need to survive. If you think about it, water is also a teacher. Because when you step back, you notice that water is everywhere. It's in the rivers, it's in the lakes, it's the rain that falls from the sky that nourishes the crops, it's in the oceans that connects the continents. And not only that, but water is also present across different cultures, across many different civilizations. And people didn't just see water as a resource, they also saw it as wisdom in motion.
You know, Tyler, that is such a great point. Thinking about ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, Tyler and I went to Egypt last year around this time, actually, and something that I learned was that they really valued the Nile River. It was called the lifeblood of their civilizations. I know that in India and in Hindu traditions, the Ganges River is very sacred to them. It's considered a purifier of the soul. And even in this day and age, we flock to the ocean, especially here in Jersey, always going to the Jersey Shore, not just for fun, but because something about the waves stirs a deep, almost spiritual calm in us.
Wow, Nina, that's pretty moving. That reminds me of Laozi, an ancient Chinese philosopher and sage, and also the author of the Tao Te Ching. He also analyzed and looked at water as something to draw lessons from. And one of my favorite quotes is ones that says, "The highest excellence is like water. Water is good at benefiting the myriad things without competing with them." And he also
Mm.
talks about these 7 virtues of knowing where to dwell, keeping the mind still, treating others with kindness, honoring our words, governing wisely, and handling things with skill, and moving at the right time. So, just being able to talk about all these virtues in water just tells you a little bit about how deep of a person he was. By just how much can we learn just by
So true.
simply looking at our surroundings and drawing lessons from our nature. So these lessons from ancient philosophy invite us to see water as both as a mirror and also
Mm.
as a guide to how we live. So that brings us to our first question of discussion, which is, can you remember a moment in life when water made you pause to feel, to remember, or to see something differently?
Hmm. That is a great question, David. When we were first thinking of this podcast topic, Laozi was actually the first philosopher I was thinking of, and exactly that quote that you mentioned there. And the question that you were asking about when water made me pause to feel, to remember, I kind of think about the times when I use water the most, at least like directly. And for me, I think that's like gardening and cooking. I started gardening during COVID as like a hobby. Sure, everybody has picked up a COVID hobby. And for me, that was gardening. But I think what it taught me is that water truly does nourish all things. Something that you don't really fully appreciate until you realize like the effect that it had when you water, the plants. Like day after day, seeing it grow. Because just like the plants, us humans also would not be alive and nourished without water. I think the second place where I use water the most is probably cooking. Everything from just like washing the vegetables requires water because water helps, as Lau just says, helps cleans things in addition to nourishing. So yeah, David, how about you?
Yeah, I think this is a great question and very powerful question. And I can totally relate, Nina, to what you share, like about like how people picked up different habits, different things during COVID. I totally relate there, especially when it comes to this question, how can I remember a moment in my life when water made me feel different or made me pause? So something that I picked up during COVID as well was like walking to this park nearby me,
Nice.
and it was mind blowing because it was like less than a mile away and I never went there.
So
Mm.
Like I
relatable.
never went there, guys. Like it's so funny. And then I found this place and I started going every single day. I started walking there because there was a stream of water and I just liked like the peace of like, being close to the water, like kind of like walking in the forest. It was like so peaceful. So I
Yeah.
actually picked up that new habit of like going to a park where there is a lake or where there's like a stream of water or something. So something that happened to me recently was that I was having a really difficult day at work to the point where I had to like close my laptop because it was like I'm done for the day. Like I just
Mhm.
had a lot. Emotionally, it was a lot. So I just kind of canceled my meetings for that day. And a thought came to me, I was like, David, go to the park where is that lake. And I just sat there and just started looking at the water, started looking at the lake, started looking around. And that, after a few minutes, completely like calmed me down. Calmed me down. I was
Mm.
able to like not listen to the chatter in my own brain about all these negative thoughts. I was able to like I feel like the water was kind of like a mirror. Like it was
Mm.
helping me see
Mm.
myself. Bringing that awareness to myself was able to like at some point calm me down. And I remember that like I was like calm, and then I remember coming back home, doing a little bit of journaling, and I was able to find my own answer within my
Right.
own mess
Wow.
and within my own difficult situation. And next day I was ready to go. Which is this is something that would have taken me like probably days in the past, but because I have
Mhm.
built that new habit of like identifying what I'm feeling, finding a healthy way to regulate that emotion, calm myself down, and then like once I regulate my emotions, trying to do whatever it is that I need to do. In my case, is journaling to find my own answer and not act according to my emotions, but what is morally correct or what is it that I want or who I want to be in relationship to this situation or experience I have. So that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
share.
I love that.
Yeah, I would definitely say that for me, water has definitely made me much more self-conscious in that I take a moment to slow down and actually notice the little details in my surroundings. And an example of that is before in the past at work, we have a common shared area with a sink. So my colleagues, they use the sink a lot to wash the cups, wash their bowls. And sometimes they would forget to turn off the faucet completely. So there's always a little drip of water coming from the faucet. Now, in the past, I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I thought to myself, okay, it's just a few drops of water, right? Like, how bad can it really be? And on the surface, it sounds very minor, but afterwards, I stumbled upon an interesting fact from the Environmental Protection Agency. And this is actually on the website. And when I read the statistic, it really struck a chord with me. Basically, it said that a leaky faucet that drips at the rate of one drip per second can waste more than 3,000 gallons of water per year. That's enough for more than 180 showers. And the moment I read that fact, I was really shocked. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, who would have thought that just those small drips of water coming from the faucet can actually waste that much gallons of water per year? So the moment I read that, I thought to myself, "Okay, then this is something that I need to pay more attention to." So afterwards, when I go to the common area and I see that there's a faucet that's still leaking a little drips of water, I would immediately go over and close the faucet off completely. And that also trickled in to at home, where oftentimes we have guests that comes over, they use the sink, and there may be water that's still dripping. I would immediately just go and turn off the faucet completely. So, because of me reading that fact, I became much more self conscious. So, it made me pay more attention to the tiny little details in our everyday life. And in this moment, water also became a teacher because it's teaching me that small actions matter, that having awareness matters, and that something so simple as just closing a faucet completely can conserve so much water and in turn is also caring for something as big as the planet.
Yeah, that's what I call conscious citizenship, Tyler.
Ah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that this idea that water is a mirror for life comes up time and time again throughout human history. And what's even more interesting is that this is not just some idea that is found in the Eastern world. Even in the Western world, we can find some of the greatest thinkers were also fascinated by water and what it could teach us. It shows up time and time again as a metaphor for how to live and how to think about the world.
Yeah, exactly. So, thinking about philosophers in the Western world, one person that comes to mind is Leonardo da Vinci, who is multi talented and is known as, a scientist, an artist, creating the Mona Lisa, building out the sketches of a helicopter hundreds of years before helicopters were even built. But one particular subject matter that Leonardo da Vinci was really fascinated by was water, both in terms of the physical properties of water as well as the philosophical aspect to it. In terms of the physical part of water, he was able to draw like really detailed diagrams of turbulence way before we had the physics to do the math, and that's already amazing in and of itself. But in addition to that, on the more philosophical side, he has been quoted for saying a few things, using water as an analogy to life. So, one of the quotes I found was that he said, the fact that water is the driver of all nature. I found it to be very similar to Laozi's philosophy of water. But another quote that I really enjoyed was the quote saying that when you put your hand in a flowing stream, you touch the last that has gone before, and the first of what is still to come. And I think for me, I see that quote as an analogy to life. The flowing stream is analogous to how quickly our lives move, right? You can't really stay still and pause time. Time is always flowing, it's always changing. And I think it reminds us that we can't keep holding up to the past. You can't be anxious about the future. You kind of have to learn how to adapt and go with the flow as life goes on as well.
That's such a great point, Nina. And it actually got me thinking about something that while water teaches us to go with the flow, water also reminds us not to just stay still. Because there's actually a big distinction between being calm and being stagnant. And we often hear be like water, but I think that we also need to remember that water is always moving. And it would become water that's stagnant if we stop flowing, if we hold on to resentment, grudges, negative feelings, emotions, and pain, we then start to cloud ourselves. And just like real stagnant water, we begin to lose clarity, we lose oxygen, and that's when things, emotions such as bitterness and negativity just begin to grow within us. So actually, when I think about water, I don't just think about its peace. I also think about its movement and water's willingness to adapt and to keep moving. So, my next question for everyone here is what practical steps could you take today to stop clinging to a situation or an emotion and move forward more gracefully?
Sure, I can take a stab at this first because I was the one who just mentioned about using water as an analogy to go with the flow and not to be caught up with the past based on any emotions that one may have or being anxious about the future. And for me, I want to share an example about not being too anxious about the future. And the reason why this quote from Da Vinci really resonates with me is that I'm currently job hunting for a job full time as I'm going to be graduating from school next year. And it's just, I think naturally it could be a very anxiety inducing time because if you think about it, 1 year from now, I literally have no idea what type of job I will have if I have, what function, what industry. I don't know what city I'll be living in. And so there's just a lot of unknowns. And I think the fact that the future is unknown, especially when things are changing, can cause a lot of stress. But doing research on this topic that we're sharing for today, it made me self reflect a bit more and made me realize that, stuff that's in the future that's out of our control, it's not necessarily worth stressing about it. I think we all can learn, and myself included, to be a bit more like water in the sense of just being more adaptable and having things be the way they are. If I get a rejection, that's okay. It's part of the process. If I get an interview, that's also part of the process. I think from all of this is that even though my future is uncertain, it's more important to focus on the present in terms of the things that I can do and what I can prepare for.
Wow, Nina, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so for me, this question really brings me back to something that happened when I was in high school. So, what happened was I was a sophomore and I was serving as vice president of the student council. And we had this event called Battle of the Classes. I'm not sure if you two know what that is. It's basically like an annual competition amongst all the grades. And one of our responsibilities was we had to design class t shirts to wear during Battle of the Classes, and we decided on the color green. And we had several of our classmates, they decided to volunteer to help tie dye the shirts. Now, none of us really had much experience what we were doing, so the shirts didn't turn out to be as great as we hoped. So when it came time to actually go and pass out the shirts to our classmate, they literally tore it apart. So they were saying things like, these shirts are so ugly, I'm not gonna wear this, I'm not wearing
Oh,
that. Some of the classmates were even tweeting this on Twitter, right,
oh,
about their dissatisfaction with the shirts. And I made the mistake of joining in with them. So I tweeted, it's a bit crude, but I said, wow, the shirts look like the Hulk took a crap on them.
oh,
Now, at the time, I didn't want to take responsibility for how the shirts turned out. So I wanted to blend in with the rest of the crowd and,
okay.
criticize my own team, my own council. And then what happened was that so my tweet actually got me reported to the vice principal's office for being inappropriate. And this caused a lot of tension because it turned out that when I found out the person who reported me was actually a friend of mine on
Oh,
the council that we served together with. So she told me that, she reviewed herself that she was the one that reported me. And when she told me that, it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't respond. I literally just froze and I really just like broke down in tears when she like told me all this. I felt very betrayed. And then from things after that, it really just kind of just spiraled a bit. Our friend group fractured and people in the friend group they took sides and ultimately I felt very isolated for for the rest of that school year. And then, funnily enough, later that school year, I tried to run for class president, and I got reported a second time to the vice principal's office because of a tweet that was taken out of context. And what the funny thing was that it was actually the same friend that reported me the first time. So she reported me a second time. And I was really carrying that hurt for the rest of the school year, and then even on to, like, the rest of my high school years, and I was, like, blaming my friend and just replaying it over and over again, and I was getting very petty and being a jerk too. So what happened was that she would upload videos on her YouTube channel of her singing all these cover songs, right? And being the jerk that I was at the time, I just disliked all her videos because I was just like, just really mad at her, right? So I just disliked all the videos and I was being very petty. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I realized that I was clinging on to a lot of resentment, like still water, still stagnant water. And it was really clouding my thinking and it was just making me feel very heavy. And it wasn't too much later after talking with my mom about this that I was able to finally see this whole thing differently. And my mom should help me realize that actually this whole thing was actually a gift in disguise because it taught me accountability for my actions and for my words and to really take ownership of it
Hmm.
and to understand really how things can easily be misinterpreted. So looking back at it now, I'm actually very grateful that it actually happened to me at a young age in high school where the stakes were much smaller instead of happening it later in life where the consequences could be much worse, right? So once I recognized this, it really helped me shift my mindset, and I really saw this as a really good lesson for me, not as a loss. And I really felt like a lot of heavy burden lifted off me. And what this really taught me is to really move like water, to not just be still and stagnant in the same emotional state, but to keep on flowing with what you learn. So, with that shift, I was able to shift from being bitter and being angry to gratitude. And that was ultimately how I was able to finally let go and to keep moving forward.
I just want to say, as your sister and someone who has seen you gone through this when you were in high school, I still remember those moments when that happened and how you were feeling and just how distraught and how angry and how upset you were. I just want to say I'm really proud of you for being able to kind of take a look back with such maturity and be able to move on from it and be able to learn from it because, the way you're mentioning it now, I didn't quite realize at that time, but you lost your friend group. Your own friend seemed to have hurt you, right, in high school, and, like, it was a small high school. Everybody would know, everybody found out. Being called to the principal's office is a very scary thing as someone that had happened to me, like, one time, and I was, like, freaking out about it. So, I just wanna say as a sister, I'm very proud of you for being able to kinda go through that challenge because I think high school, I feel like for you, at least in comparison to me, a lot of stuff happened to you in high school and, like, they're very difficult interpersonal things to go through and a lot of emotions that come with it. So, that's what I wanted to say.
Wow, that's really powerful, Tyler. Thank you for unpacking all of that. That is the fact that you're actually talking about that. It means that there's a level of awareness and growth going on already in you. So that's great. That reminds me of when I think of this question, and based on what you just shared, like a lot of different stories come up in my head. But the main one that keeps coming back to me now is like my experience with my father. Growing up, I had a very difficult relationship with my father. My parents were divorced since I have knowledge of myself. That was just the reality. Me growing up, and I saw it as a regular thing or normal thing, but as I started to grow older and older, become a young adult and all of that, I started to see the impact in my life, like of the divorce, of my father not being around.
Mhm.
And the second thing is like always having a very difficult relationship with him in general, because he was always a tough cookie. So he passed away in 2020 during the pandemic, all of that. But something that there's a lot of things that I think I was able to move on from, and always have a good relationship with him, or at least try to have one and not really like walk away from him or run away from him. But there was still a lot of things that I feel like I didn't fully forgive, especially stuff that I went through as a kid. And I remember talking to someone about this, and this person mentioned to me like, "Hey, David, have you heard about like writing a letter to your younger self?" And I was like, "No, I never heard
Mm.
about that." It was like, "Yeah, maybe you should try it. Like, write a letter to your younger self or to your kid about maybe things that you recall that maybe you want to let go of, or maybe you're ready to move on from, whether it's stuff that you went through your parents or whatever the case may be. Just write and maybe do it one at a time, because maybe doing too many of them will be too much." So I remember like after listening, I was like, "Oh man, this is a really interesting exercise." Like,
Mm.
but I was like, I procrastinated it for a little bit because I wasn't ready to like
Yeah.
deal with all of that.
Right.
But until I got the courage to finally do it, and I did it. I sat down and I started writing about my parents. I started writing about the stuff that I went through them, or how would, how they made me feel in certain situations. I wrote down about what little David needed, more of, more friends to play more, or my parents to be around more, things like that. And then I remember like really having a very emotional time, when I was like, as I was writing things down. And but in the end, basically, I write down like, regardless of all of that I went through, I still like forgive them and forgive myself for not being a better son, or and I know the best. They did the best that they could. And
Mhm.
that was it. Like I wrote it down. But the funny thing is that I actually had a dream that same night.
No
This
way.
Wow.
same night, I had a dream with my father. And the dream
Uh-huh.
was as follow. There was someone pointing a gun at my father. And I was like standing on the sides. And this person started arguing with me, my father, like, "Hey, Dad, like, hey, I'm gonna kill you if you keep talking, blah, blah." And my father keeps like arguing back and actually responding. And like
Uh-huh.
as I'm standing there, I'm like, I'm not even moved by anything. I'm just like peacefully standing there, which is odd, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the guy actually gets mad. He's like, "If you don't shut up, I'm gonna actually kill you, blah, blah, blah." And my father actually responded back, and the guy like shoots him 3 times. One, two, three.
Oh my
And
god.
then after the third shot, I said, "Enough," like a very loud, "Enough," kind of,
Uh-huh.
And the guy looked at me like, when somebody gives you that look like, "Do you want me to kill you? Like you could be next?" And I look
Uh-huh.
back at him and I say, "I'm not scared of you." And I said, "Enough." And that was my dream. So
Oh
I
wow.
felt like what in the beginning I was like confused by the dream, but actually after I did a lot of reflection on the dream, is that was my way subconsciously of closing something with my father. I
Mm.
didn't really kill I didn't really kill him, or he didn't really got killed because he was already dead. But it was the fact of closing something that no longer serves me. I the feeling of resentment or hate or whatever it is that I had built up within myself, that's what got killed. And that's why I was so courageous to speak up, because I have moved on from that. So I think that's where my courage came up in the dream, like, enough. Like I'm done with all of this.
Right.
Like,
Uh-huh.
let's keep moving kind of thing. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you for sharing that, David. I'm curious to know, after that dream, what were you feeling? Did you continue to write letters afterwards?
Specifically about my childhood, no. I continue to journal, but I think it's one of
Uh-huh.
those exercises that you want to do it maybe once a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
for some
Okay.
people, it could be a lot. For some other people,
Yeah.
It's not a lot. It's not a big deal. But I think you'll figure it out yourself. Like if it's something that you want to give it a try, you'll see that you will try. Like I try to avoid it for a while, like for a few weeks.
Makes
But
sense.
I
For sure, yeah.
something kept telling me like, David, you got to sit down and do it. Like at some point, this really got to be helpful for you. I was like, okay, and until I was ready, and I was ready, and I just did it. So yeah,
That is a good suggestion from your friend about writing a letter to your past self. I haven't actually heard of that before, but I definitely heard of writing letters to your future self. So I remember there's a website called Future Me, and you can basically write letters to your future self and then have it send you it, however many years in the future you want to send it. But I think it kind of serves a similar purpose to what you're saying, though actually maybe the opposite in terms of like I think the future one, the forward thinking like letter, it's more about do you still have your values or do you still share the same values that you had currently? Whereas I think the reflection letter looking back is more about can you let go of the emotions that were holding you back and can you recognize that?
yeah, yeah, totally agree. I have done both, and I feel like the when you do the ones in the past is like kind of like self healing, but when you
Mhm.
do
Definitely.
the one in the future, and also like having a deeper understanding of yourself, because we are like a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that we do today is because of stuff that happened like in the past. So it's like super super powerful to really do that exercise and kind of like understand yourself and where certain behaviors and certain patterns come from, and being able to
Mm,
be open about it and look into them and face them and not be afraid of part of that is within you. But the future one, totally agree. Something that I think it's super helpful to align yourself with like a vision or mission, like something, I like to do the one like 10 years from now kind of thing that gives you like some sort of direction for life, and then aligning your life, your years, your goals, whatever to that vision of 10 years from now. And before you know it, it actually happens. Some of this stuff starts
Yeah,
to
yeah.
happen. Yeah, it's really, really powerful.
for sure.
Awesome. I really love everything that we shared here today because it really shows just how powerful something so simple like water can be. Because water doesn't just fight the terrain, it adapts, it moves, and it always finds a way forward. And when we choose to let go of what's weighing us down, whether it's a negative emotion, a memory, or even a situation that we're trying way too hard to control, we give ourselves that same freedom to move and grow. And it's very interesting looking back at our conversation. Laozi, he saw water as a model for how to live with humility and strength. Da Vinci saw water as the driving force of all nature, which nourishes all beings. And this reminds us that water, through its constant flow, that time is always moving and nothing in life is permanent. And so perhaps the real work now is not just to understand water, but to live like water. So as we close today's episode, I want to leave everyone here with two questions to carry you with yourself this week. First is where in your life are you pushing too hard against the current? And what might happen if you allowed yourself to just flow instead? Take a moment to reflect on that. And imagine just letting go of resistance and just moving more freely, like water moving around a rock. The second question, based on what you've learned today, what's one small step that you can take to bring the wisdom of water into a real decision, a habit, or a relationship in your life? Because even just a tiny action, one small ripple can set major changes in motion. Let water guide you this week. Adapt, release, and keep moving forward. And that brings us to the end of episode 5. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our latest episode. We hope you got a lot of great value from today's discussion. Follow us on social media at ancientwisdom_modern voices. Subscribe and leave your comments and continue the conversation over there. So thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you at the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you at the next episode.